Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start the video with the story of another greedy landlord who ended up losing the loot he was counting on. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Sure, I'll reimburse you for what the carpet's worth. Guy telling me the story, Nate. His brother, Bill. Landlord, L. So this guy, Nate, has a brother, Bill, who was renting a home. He was one of those long-term renters who stayed at the same location for 10-plus years. Bill was moving out, and the landlord, L, was trying his best to get every penny out of Bill that he could. Landlord looked around the house and tried to charge him for every little thing, stains on the wall, the cupboard that was broken before he moved in, etc. The biggest, most expensive offense was the carpet. The carpet was not pretty. Stains everywhere, a big hole where a cigarette was dropped, threads showing, etc. The carpet was clearly old when he moved in, but Bill wasn't very prepared and didn't think to take pictures before he moved in. Nate devised a plan to help his brother out. He knew the law pretty well and went with Bill to sign the final paperwork. I don't know why the landlord thought he could charge the renter beyond his deposit. Maybe they had an agreement that he left out of the story. Or the laws were different when this happened. Regardless, he was going to have to pay for all of the brand new carpet because of the one hole he caused. So the landlord smugly pulled out the paperwork to have Bill sign. Nate took one look at it, smirked, and told Bill to sign it. They got done with all that, shook hands, and the landlord started bragging about how much he was going to make off of B. Then Nate dropped the bomb. The paper said that he had to reimburse the carpet for what it was worth. According to the law that he had a copy of in his pocket, carpets are worthless after 10 years of use, which his brother alone fit as a qualification. The landlord was flabbergasted. Apparently, he ended up just using some leftover carpet that he had in storage to replace the square where the cigarette burn was located, instead of replacing the whole carpet. And our second story. Use or lose vacation? I mean, if you insist. I recently relocated across several states for my company where I've worked for the last 5 years. I now work for corporate, but prior to the move, I was a manager at one of the stores. Now in retail, there are forever reasons cropping up why it isn't a good time for you to take vacation. So I had about 5 weeks saved up. Prior to accepting the corporate job, one of the first questions I asked was if there would be any changes to my benefits, to which I was told no. Anyway, I'm sure you can see where this is going. But as soon as I signed over my life and arrived in Texas, I found out, by accident, that vacation time does not roll over. When I inquired about it, I was informed that the reason my vacation time had been rolling over back home was because it was a state law. I tried to be reasonable and just talk to HR. I reminded her of how I had specifically asked about changes in benefits before accepting the position and was told there would be none, which was their mistake. But all I wanted was for the company to make it right and let me roll it over one time so that I wasn't forced to either forfeit thousands of dollars worth of vacation or take over a month off within my first 3 months in the new position, screwing over my team. She said she'd look into it, and there the issue sat. I kept checking in with them and reminding them that the longer this took, the more compressed my time off would have to be if they said no. Finally, HR said they couldn't do anything for me and referred me to the appeals process where it sat for some more time. I finally got my appeal back and it was predictably denied, literally citing the reason that it was a rule. Yeah, no crap, it's a rule. That's why it's in appeals. I was told I could appeal the appeal, but it's going to take up to 60 days and we lose our time at the end of January, LOL. So anyway, guess who's now taking nearly the entire length of January off? This really isn't that bad of a deal for me. It was part principle and a lot because I was trying to do what was right for the business and my team and not leave them in the lurch. I've had my boss looped in on this since it started, and fortunately, she's been super cool about it and supportive of my getting to run out my hours, but it still sucks for them. I thought HR was there to protect the business. And our last story. Entitled aunt tries to force me to give up my inheritance and threatens to tie it up in court for years. This all began literally on my birthday and carried on for about 2 months after. At this time, the order of protection had long ran out and had not been renewed, as we'd gone total no contact with my entitled aunt, and had been so since she'd tried to submit forged documents to the courts trying to get her hands on my inheritance. It still puzzles me how she didn't wind up in prison over that, but I digress. It was my 18th birthday, and the party was in full swing, with everyone having a great time. Kids having fun in the backyard, adults relaxing with their favorite drinks, everyone enjoying themselves. I'd just gone into the backyard to see how the kids were getting on and was having fun playing chase and you can't catch me with the kids when there was suddenly a loud commotion from inside the house. I rushed into the house to see what was going on. There stood my aunt with some guy, sleazy lawyer, in a cheap suit demanding to see me and shouting I was going to sign her papers and no one was going to stop her this time. My mom, now in declining health, was up in my aunt's face yelling at her to get out and never come back and that she was not and never would be welcome here. My aunt just stood there looking smug, her entitlement on full display for everyone to see. She shouted at my mom to shut up and get out of her way. When my mom didn't, she had the gall to raise her hand and full-on slap my mother so hard she went down. I lost it and went into full attack mode and punched her full in the face as hard as I could for the second time in her life and screamed, "Get out before the cops get here!" My aunt got up off the floor and, seeing the murderous look on my face, decided to leave. She rushed out so fast with the sleazy lawyer behind her, I swear she left a vacuum in her wake. She actually had the gall to call the cops and try to have me arrested for defending my mother. So once again, we had to make a trip to the courthouse and apply for a new restraining order. The judge took one look at the form and signed it without question, having to deal with her several times over the years in several other frivolous lawsuits. She lost every one of them. We were later told when receiving the order, my aunt went bat crap crazy and made several threats, which prompted another visit by the cops to her house. A few days later, we received a notice that she was filing suit for assault, theft of personal monies, deception, and a whole host of other made-up and imagined crimes, and was demanding the inheritance in its entirety as compensation for her pain and suffering. The case went to court 2 months later. During the court proceedings, she told completely embellished tales of how we were stalking her and threatening her life, and in general, making her life a living hell. During the proceeding, she was asked by the judge if she had proof of said stalking. She didn't. The judge also asked us if we could provide proof of her having come to the house and attacking my mother. We did, and had several witnesses, including a retired officer who was a longtime family friend, and we showed video proof of her driving up our driveway and getting out of the car and literally storming to the front door. Yes, my mother had long installed security cameras around the property because things were mysteriously disappearing when left outside. Not cheap at that time and considered a luxury item. Big bulky things that you could not miss if you saw them. She also pulled out the "he threatened me" card, pointing at me, trying to play the victim, but failed miserably. I wound up with $10 fine and 5 hours community service, no biggie. I knocked all that out in one afternoon and made a few new friends at the same time. The judge threw her case out and told her that if he ever saw her in his courtroom again with something so frivolous, he would see to it that she would be the next one fined and receiving no less than 100 hours of community service to teach her a little humility. He also ruled that no matter what she thinks, the terms of the inheritance were spelled out clearly, and she lost all and any claim to it the first time she tried to sue a 9-year-old child over it, and that the court would show her no mercy whatsoever next time. A few minutes after court was adjourned, we were in the court foyer getting ready to leave when she and the sleazy lawyer approached and said this was far from over, and that if they could not get the inheritance due my aunt, he would keep it tied up in procedures and legal matters until none of it was left to inherit. She was reminded of the new restraining order, and my mother called over one of the police officers that were there with another client. My aunt and her sleazy lawyer left in a rush. True to his word, a few days later we got notice of a new lawsuit from them and that they had applied for a change of venue, claiming they feared they would not get a fair hearing locally because of the good old boy attitude that permeated the local populace. Their request for change of venue was denied on the basis of insufficient proof. So they started playing delay tactics, claiming they were still investigating certain matters, they were not fully prepared, etc., etc., thinking that would cost us money and force us to just sign the inheritance over to end the troubles. It didn't work, because I'd not yet received the inheritance. Our attorney waited until after everything was settled before he handed it over to me. Brilliant maneuver on his part. My mother unfortunately passed away during this time in her sleep. They tried one more time to get me to sign over the inheritance a few days after my mother's wake and funeral. All I did was walk over to the, now my phone, and start dialing and said, "Hello, police? I have 2 trespassers on my property that have a restraining order against them and are refusing to leave." They vanished faster than I thought possible. In the end, they were forced to drop the suit as it was obvious they were not going to win. And yes, I was stubborn enough to leave it where it was for as long as it took for them to stop. The last time, she wound up being ordered into court and threatened with serious consequences if she did not cease her harassment and threats. Since then, the rest of the family essentially cast her out, ostracizing her. Even those considered entitled will have nothing to do with her anymore. Still, she persists in trying to gossip and spread rumors about me and how I stole her inheritance to anyone that'll listen. No one ever believes her. Yet she persists in trying. Her entitlement and obsession have grown so powerful to her, she still thinks she's going to get her money someday and that I'll pay for making her suffer so much. She's become so obsessed, she even managed to bully the one family member I did share my inheritance with into buying her a small house, and what's more, got totally cut off by that family member after she got the house. To this day, she still hasn't given up her attempts to get my inheritance, even tried claiming a new house I'd purchased with her money. She can try as much as she wants, but she will never succeed. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.